That's beautiful. Yeah, it is. Next to bad, a man under arrest after being spotted breaking into cars while wearing a cat onesie. Police say he also broke into several homes in that Wisconsin neighborhood. One woman says her drum kit, bike, and son's wagon are missing, and he blames the cat onesie guy.
Interesting. And the ugly. This is hilarious. This golfer just won more than $1 million, but gets denied a kiss after the victory. Aaron Wise winning the Byron Nelson on the PGA Tour, only to lose big time with his girlfriend.
That's his girlfriend?
Yes. She's like, oh, look at her there. She totally denied him. He ended up getting a smooch with his trophy, but still, that video is all over the place.
There's a lot of girls out there that'll kiss a guy with $1 million. Just so you know, Aaron.
Oh my gosh. Have a good day.
We'll see you later.
If they had spies in my campaign, during my campaign for political purposes, that would be unprecedented in the history of our country.
Was the FBI spying on Trump's campaign?
No, they were not. They were spying on what the Russians were doing.
President Trump says there's a good chance next month's planned summit with Kim Jong-un will not happen on schedule.
I think his willingness to say we're going to do a deal but only on my terms is a very good sign.
In a brand new Reuters poll, the GOP now holds an edge over Democrats in the generic midterm ballot for the first time.
Fox News has confirmed that President Trump will travel to Long Island to speak about the need to remove violent MS-13 gang members.
The Long Island visit coming just hours after a gang member nicknamed Animal is sentenced to 40 years.
He's now being called the most pro-life president in history. Yes, it's Wednesday. We're downhill to the weekend. Can you smell it? It's going to be a long weekend, too. So it's a shorter week next week. Yeah.
Right. We have a lot to discuss. So we're getting more revelations, as the president has noticed, about what really happened in the early spring of 2016. And it turns out there was suspicion, perhaps, amongst the intelligence apparatus of the Obama administration, and there was some concern that the Russians were infiltrating into or somehow playing a role in the Trump campaign. Right. But rather than approach the Trump people, they would put some people in place, the so-called informants or spies, to maybe go in there and find out, probe around and see where the Russians have gained access.
Now we know exactly why. The president sent out a couple of tweets probably while you were sleeping. The reason the federal government put the spies in there was so crooked Hillary would win.
Yeah, he says, follow the money. Listen to these tweets. If the person placed very early into my campaign wasn't a spy, put there by the previous administration for political purposes, how come such a seemingly massive amount of money was paid for services rendered? Many times higher than normal. Follow the money. The spy was there early in the campaign and yet never reported collusion with Russia because there was no collusion. He was only there to spy for political reasons and to help crooked Hillary win, just like they did to Bernie Sanders, who got duped.
Okay, so earlier in the day, as we tried to follow the money, as the president suggests, earlier in the day he was in the Oval Office with the president of South Korea, and he had these observations about if the FBI put a spy, how bad would that be? It would be this bad.
A lot of people are saying they had spies in my campaign. If they had spies in my campaign, that would be a disgrace to this country. It would be very illegal, aside from everything else. It would make probably every political event ever look like small potatoes. If they had spies in my campaign, during my campaign for political purposes, that would be unprecedented in the history of our country.
Do you have confidence in Rod Rosenstein?
What's your next question, please?
I'm a reporter from...
Excuse me, I have the president of South Korea here.
Yes.
Okay. He doesn't want to hear these questions.
And North Korea is extremely important, and
I want to hear the answer.
Yeah, we'll be discussing that for a while. But just to finish up this talking point, Mike Caputo, who was a former Trump guy, who was in the campaign at this time that this was happening, hopped on with Neil Cavuto yesterday and says, now that we find out how the government was operating and try to find out what was happening within the agency with Sam Clovis, with Carter Page, and with Papadopoulos, the more I think about it, there's another guy that came up to me and approached me about Hillary's emails, and I got concerned about it. And I just backed out. I said, just leave me out of this. And now I think about the way this whole thing was operating.
Sure.
I sense that this could be something that this could be a setup, but I could sense that there are more people in and around the Trump camp are going to go, wait a second, that strange call I got really down. Now things are beginning to make sense.
So it looks as if there could have been a second spy. What he told Neil Cavuto was through an intermediary. This guy from a government agency said, hey, we've got Hillary's email. Do you want him for the Trump campaign? And he thought about it for a little while, and he said, no, absolutely not. One American News I saw online, apparently they've got a source that says the person who tried to dangle that in front of the guy was the NSA. It was somebody from the NSA. So if true, that would be stunning.
Well, the former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, was on The View yesterday. He's trying to sell his book, and he admits that there was a spy. He says they weren't, like you said at the top of the show, they weren't spying on the campaign. They were trying to spy to see if Russia was trying to interrupt this election. What's the word I'm looking for? So anyway, chaos. So James Clapper's on there, and he says the president should be happy that they sent someone in. Listen.
Was the FBI spying on Trump's campaign?
No, they were not. They were spying on a term I don't particularly like, but on what the Russians were doing, trying to understand were the Russians infiltrating, trying to gain access, trying to gain leverage and influence.
So why doesn't he like
what they do?
So why doesn't he like that? He should be happy though.
Well, he should be.
What's interesting about Mr. Clapper is on Monday, he said that Mr. Trump is trying to distort standard investigatory practices. That's standard, spying on a campaign. He said it's a routine thing that goes on all the time, and the president is trying to make a mountain out of a molehill.
Why didn't they tell the president, if that's the case? Why didn't they say, we think that Russia could be trying to collude or mess up this election, get involved in this election?
And that's Brit Hume's soundbite.
Yeah, and that's so true. And basically, that's what I was talking to Andy McCarthy yesterday in the green room about. I said, if you really have legitimate concerns about this, and it's 2016, all you have to do is knock on Trump's door. I'm James Comey. I got some concerns about people you just hired in March, because Papadopoulos, Manafort, and Carter Page have some tenuous links to Russia, and we're concerned that they're trying to infiltrate our election. So at which time you could just have, well, Tom Barack recommended Manafort. Carter Page and Papadopoulos are one's a 20-something-year-old with light recommendations whose resume doesn't even hold up to scrutiny. So maybe this whole thing is stopped in the spring and there is no problem.
Well,
they said they debated doing that, and then they decided to do it this way instead.
It's still very troubling that, as we are learning more, these stories are coming out. We were just talking about how that fella, Mr.
Caputo.
Michael Caputo, was on yesterday with Neil Cavuto, and he said, somebody from an agency through an intermediary offered these email. Ultimately, we understand, apparently that guy got back in contact with us because we reached out to him and said, I'd never worked for a government agency.
But it makes everyone suspicious.
He said it was a conversation at a cocktail party.
Right, because there are so many things hanging out there. But Ainsley, to your point, Brit Hume feels exactly the same way. If the federal government knew something about something, why didn't they tell somebody?
The efforts of Russia to meddle in the election are worth investigating. There's no question about that. But if you are beginning to insert yourselves into somebody's campaign and you're worried about protecting the campaign, as some apologists for the FBI have stated, what would you do? Wouldn't you then go immediately and say to the people in that campaign, look, we need to tell you this. You got a problem here. You got the Russians trying to penetrate you here. That was considered, we now know, and it never happened.
It was considered, but it didn't happen. But why are they so concerned about saying this whole investigation first started in July, and then they say late spring? Why did they just say, hey, guys, when you hired 3 people that we had on our radar, then we thought this was an issue. Now, we know that Manafort's connections to the Russia and Ukraine the reason why he was free is because the Russian government had a sympathetic leader in Ukraine was ousted. He called up Tom Barack and goes, tell President Trump, I know he needs people. I'll work for free.
But what is happening
and I'll wrangle delegates. I'm not going to work for Russia.
The story keeps changing, the official story. You know, we were told that it all started with this tip from George Papadopoulos at the bar. Then we learn about the spy. Well, the spy was a couple weeks earlier, and then somebody else, and it was a couple of weeks earlier. It might have been a month earlier. Suddenly, the official timeline that we've been told all along doesn't look so official.
Well, there's unfortunately a lack of trust with the intelligence community. And if they were, it looks like many of them, clearly, if you read those text messages, that many of them really supported Hillary Clinton and hated President Trump at the time he was running. So if an FBI informant, if they infiltrated his campaign and they hate him, it just, people at home just don't trust the intelligence
you know what?
community.
It's a Democratic administration. They wanted the Democratic to stay in power.
Right,
let alone president. But I'll just add this. In the Washington Post today, confirmed yesterday, 2 Republican lawmakers, Devin Nunes and Trey Gowdy, are going to be allowed tomorrow, thanks to General Kelly brokering it, to go see this classified information of the confidential FBI source or sources. And I guess they're either going to be assuaged that everything's on the up and up, or they're going to be more concerned.
And why didn't the FBI come out earlier and say, as far as collusion is concerned, the reason we know there's no collusion is because we infiltrated the campaign? They're telling us now because they got caught.
And had she won, we wouldn't even be this far.
True.
Anyway, it's 6:10 now in New York City, and Jillian has a Fox News alert.
That's right. Yes, I do. Let's get you caught up on this news, starting with the Fox News alert that Steve mentioned. A tractor trailer filled with nearly 100 illegal immigrants busted in Texas. Border Patrol agents making the bust overnight on a highway more than an hour outside of Mexico. Many of the 92 people found inside the 18-wheeler were treated for dehydration. Some of them even rushed to the hospital. Others picked up by Border Patrol. A 16-year-old called a one-man crime wave is charged in the murder of a Baltimore police officer. Prosecutors say Dante Harris was in the getaway car for 3 other teens who were burglarizing a home. When Officer Amy Caprio was approached the stolen Jeep, Harris hit the gas, driving over her. All 4 teens were later caught. Officer Caprio, a 4-year veteran of the force who was named Officer of the Month, leaves behind a husband. She is the first female Baltimore officer to die in the line of duty. History is made during a competitive night of primaries, highlighted by key races for governor. Voters heading to the polls in Arkansas, Kentucky, Texas, and Georgia. In that state's Republican primary, tough on immigration candidate Brian Kemp moving into a July runoff against Casey Cagle after nobody received 50% of the votes. The winner of that race will take on Stacey Abrams, who became the first African-American woman to earn the nomination of a major party for governor. A SpaceX rocket successfully launching, carrying 2 NASA satellites.
3, 2, 1.
The Falcon 9 rocket lifting off from California's Vandenberg Air Force Base. The rocket carrying 2 new Earth-sized science satellites for NASA, along with 5 communications satellites. Let's look at your headlines.
There it goes. Spectacular.
Yeah, there it goes.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Julian.
All right, 12 minutes after the hour. President Trump set to visit an MS-13 hotspot today after calling, by the way, it's right by my house, after calling the vicious gang animals. Our next guest will meet with the president. We will talk to the Nassau County Police Commissioner, who, if he wanted to, could get me out of just about any ticket.
You should invite the president over for dinner.
Right? Or he should come over if he's hungry. But it's only, how about lunch first?
Okay. Maybe. And it's a court case you are going to be talking about all day. Yesterday, a judge here in New York ordered a 30-year-old man out of his parents' house. They've been trying to get him out for years, and now he's got to go.
Oh, come on. Leave him alone. Let him stay.
Yeah, let him stay till he's 40.
That's page to be specific. It's a hotspot, sadly, for MS-13 violence. Our next guest says 40% of his county's homicides in 2017 committed by MS-13 gang members, numbering to the tune of 275 members roughly overall. There's been 13 homicides, 6 of which MS-13 related. Patrick Ryder back with us, the police commissioner of Nassau County, Long Island. He's going to go back and meet with the president today and host the president today. Commissioner, what is the message that you want to relay to the president, politely but firmly?
We need help. We need, it's not as big as a problem that people see in the news and stuff, but when we have 40% of our homicides, and we had record low homicides last year, 40% are MS-13 related, and out of that 6 that they committed, 4 of them were butchered with machetes and buried into graves, shallow graves, that the families can't not only identify but can't find.
So you got 275. They're coming here. Are they Americans who say, wow, that's a great gang to join? Or are they immigrants, sometimes illegal immigrants, who say, this is a country I want to infiltrate?
We arrested 9 people to those 6 homicides last year. 7 of those 9 were undocumented here in the country.
How does it go? They go about doing it. They're illegal. They get placed with sponsor families, usually in working class areas, specifically, if you don't know, around the country watching, Hempstead, Uniondale, Brentwood. But they're really fronts, in many cases, these sponsor families, to allow these gangsters to activate.
Well, we have a 17% population of Hispanics in Nassau County. We have a great working communities, hardworking people that go to work. Our numbers, like if you look at 90% of the crime is done by 10% of the population, it's the same there. You know, you have a good, strong community and you have a small population that causes those issues that bring so much attention.
So far, the administration has given you guys support. You give us attention. I saw it when I visited. People feel as though their jobs matter more than ever. But you also need some money now, right?
Absolutely. You know, to fund these operations, to go out there, to do the enforcement, the education, the awareness, all of that takes funding. We need that support from the president. We have him watching our back now. He's supporting our enforcement efforts, but we can also use some funding now from D.C.
How does this lay out today? What's the format? What is the president? Is it going to be a round table like we saw yesterday?
It's a small round table. There's only 14 people at the table. Myself and the Suffolk County Police Commissioner will be 2 of the guests. Peter King, our congressman, and of course the president and several of his guests also.
Attorney General came about a year ago to kick this whole thing off. What's your message a year later?
A year later, the problem's still here. In 2016, we had 2 MS-13 murders. In 2017, we had 6. And even though we had less homicides overall, we have an increase of our MS-13 activity.
Do they take this as getting them more attention? Could you be actually making this more attractive to would-be gangsters? Hey, man, I'm an MS-13. I matter more than ever. The president's talking about me.
Sometimes, you know, they'll get that and they'll think that it's going to help their enrollment, if you will. But the enforcement efforts that we put out there and working with the communities out there that want to get the message, the right message to these young kids, stay away from the gangs and get into good work.
Get a job during the day, terrorize at night. Patrick Ryder's trying to put an end to that as he hosts the president today over in Bethpage, Long Island, Nassau County Police Commissioner. Always great to see you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Hopefully you have some good news soon. Coming up straight ahead, Democrats are stealing a page from the president's playbook.
The swamp has never been more foul or more fetid.
Well, will that work? Tomi Lahren here to react and also tell us about a bad story that she had to experience. And he protects, he serves, and he performs. This singing officer and his partner will join us live.
Never dreamed of something's changed.
Up North Korea could dismantle its nuclear test site as early as later today. Foreign journalists will take a train, a bus, and then hike to a remote location to watch the destruction. This all comes as President Trump says there's a substantial chance his high-stakes meeting with Kim Jong-un won't happen next month as planned. We'll keep you posted. And people with life-threatening illnesses could soon have a way to experiment with new drugs. The House has voted to approve the Right to Try legislation, which allows patients to get medications not yet approved by the FDA. Now heads to the president's desk, where he is expected to sign it into law. Meanwhile,
Democrats taking a cue from the president's playbook in a dramatic shift to their own message.
The swamp has never been more foul or more fetid than under this president.
Instead of delivering on his promise to drain the swamp, President Trump has become the swamp.
But will this work? Here to weigh in is Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren. Tommy, they did some stats. They asked people what concerns them most, and it's corruption in Washington. So are the Democrats doing the right thing by just taking his line?
Well, no, because they don't understand the meaning behind that line, because drain the swamp is not about what they believe it's about, which is impeaching this president or attacking this president, disparaging this president and his supporters. That's not what drain the swamp means. Drain the swamp means cutting taxes for the American people. It means putting Americans first. It means protecting and securing the border. And they are not about any of those things, which is why I believe that they're going to be hurting in the midterms and they're going to be hurting in 2020 yet again.
And you know what, Tommy, when you look, every time the president has tried to do something swamp drainish, he comes up, bangs his head on Washington, D.C., and it's been hard for him to get anything done.
And people need to understand, too, that the swamp also exists within the Republican Party. And it's very frustrating for those of us who support this president, support what this president is doing to reach the obstruction in our own party. So drain the swamp isn't just about draining the Democrats. It's about draining those in our own party who have forgotten the American people. Really, what drain the swamp means is to bring back to D.C. the real voice and the intentions of the silent majority. And Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, they don't seem to understand that, because their entire agenda is to raise taxes, to shield illegal immigrants, chip away at our Second Amendment rights, and impeach this president or disparage this president. That is not going to be winning for the American people like President Trump is doing internationally and domestically.
It's just ironic that it's Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. That was the swamp. They were the swamp that the president ran on draining. Now, it looks like it obviously worked for this president. He got elected on that message, and it looks like the Democrats are stealing it, and maybe they're trying to win, and they're getting desperate. Because if you look at this recent poll, Reuters poll found that Republicans hold a slim lead over Democrats in this generic ballot. They asked people that they were polling, who would you vote for, the Democrat or a Republican, if the election were today? And look at that. 38.1% said I'd vote for the Republican, and 36.7% said I'd vote for the Democrat.
Well, of course, because at the end of the day, I believe that American voters on both sides of the aisle are going to vote with their pocketbook. And the truth is, this president is winning for the American people. You look at the tax cuts, you look at what that has done for the average American. I know Nancy Pelosi thinks it's just crumbs, but to average Americans, it really means something. So looking at this president that is doing great things internationally, but also most importantly, domestically, I also think that immigration is going to be a huge part of this, because as we're seeing, as we talk about every week, even in places like California, the American people are fed up with the Democrats, and they're fed up with their agenda or their lack thereof, and they're ready for what this president is bringing to the table.
Tommy, when you're on your program and on this program, you speak your mind, but sometimes you go out in public and weird things happen. I know over the weekend you were in Minneapolis. I think you were with your mom. What went haywire?
Well, I was actually with both my parents, and we were just enjoying brunch after I did a show the night before. And unfortunately, there was a group of people probably around my age that thought it would be funny to throw water at me and then start chanting profanity. And again, not something that I'm not used to, but really disheartening.
In front of your parents.
Was that your mom in one of the videos that was walking behind you when that girl threw the drink on your back?
Yeah, it was thrown at me, and then of course it got my mom wet as well. And again, this was something that was embarrassing for me and embarrassing for my family. At the end of the day, I'm a person too, and I do get humiliated and embarrassed just like anyone else, but I'm tough, my family's tough, we can handle it. I think that those that threw the water and that were applauding and laughing about it wanted to get their 15 minutes of fame by making a video of me. I think looking back, those are the people that are going to be embarrassed by their actions. I think their parents raised them better. And furthermore, you don't have to like me, you don't have to agree with my political opinions, but you don't have the right to throw things at me. Is that the point that we got in this country, that you can't disagree with someone civilly without resorting to something like that? It's really disheartening. But again, I'm tough, I can handle it. There are those out there that might not have as thick a skin, and that's the people that I worry about.
Well, don't change who you are. You just keep doing your thing.
And here's the thing, Tommy, I was looking online, Twitter, a lot of people who are at polar opposites to you politically are supporting your right to say what you want to say.
Kathy Griffin is one of them.
Absolutely.
Hey, and you know what? That is the silver lining in this whole thing. And there are people that normally detest me, and they're coming to my defense, at least on this incident. So maybe moving forward, those that thought it was fun to throw water at me or to antagonize others with my viewpoints, maybe that they'll see that that's not the cool thing to do. Because if Kathy Griffin, of all people, is sticking up for you or defending you, hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, we can all disagree, but we don't have to be hateful and angry.
All right.
Thanks so much.
See you next time. All right. Coming up, Democrats had been demanding a hearing on election meddling for months. So where'd they go when they finally got the invitation? We're going to tell you.
Plus, a judge ordering a 30-year-old unemployed man to get out of his parents' house. Should they have let him stay?
I side with the kid. And Fleet Week kicks off this morning. Todd Pyro is out on the pier already to kick it off. Hey, Todd.
Hey, Brian, as you know, one of the greatest weeks in New York City. And take a look at this idyllic scene. East River in the foreground, Brooklyn Bridge in the background. We're going to tell you all about Fleet Week as we honor the brave men and women of our maritime services when Fox.
The 30th anniversary of Fleet Week kicking off with the parade of ships here in New York. 14 ships, including the USS Arlington, will sail up the Hudson River today before docking for the public to go and visit.
Well, as I look over at the big screen, Fox and Friends correspondent Todd Pyro is about to board a chopper to the USS Arlington, and he joins us live right now from somewhere on the island of Manhattan. Todd?
That's right, Stephen Ainsley. We are here on the East River, like you said, about ready to board the chopper. But who has a better assignment than me today? Think about this. I'm about to board a really cool chopper to get on an even cooler ship, like you said, right up the Hudson. It's going to be unreal. Let me tell you a little bit about Fleet Week if you don't know already what it is. Fleet Week is a week that really the city and the nation comes together. We have so many events planned between now and Tuesday. That's like a week's worth of really awesome events. And there's going to be thousands of brave men and women from the Marines, the Navy, and of course the Coast Guard here interacting with the folks in and around New York City. And it's not just an opportunity for these guys to get a little leave. They're going to be doing some amazing community service projects as well. Also, it's an unreal opportunity for the citizenry here in the United States, specifically in New York, to interact with these folks that do so much for our great nation. Let me tell you a little bit more about the ship that we're going to go on. It is named the USS Arlington, was named after the 9/11 attacks on the Pentagon. It has about 350 sailors and about 800 Marines on it. It's going to be an unreal day, waiting for this cloud cover over my right shoulder to break before we hit the chopper and then hit the ship, and then hopefully see you guys sometime in our 8 o'clock hour. I'm like shaking. I'm so excited. This is going to be an unreal day, and I can't wait. Back to you guys in the studio.
It is going to be great. All right. Todd Pyro, awesome. With the 30th anniversary of Fleet Week, we have featured Fleet Week every year here on Fox and Friends.
You see all the sailors walking around in downtown, or all over Manhattan, actually.
That's
so
right.
Beautiful.
And they must be carrying a bottle of Shout because they wear white. And if they get any stains, you have to shout it out.
And here's the thing about Fleet Week, and when you see the sailors and the Marines in town, is they wind up drinking for free.
Oh,
Can't tell you how many times the Deuces have bought them drinks out at Supper and things like that.
And believe me, Julia Mealy shows up with her Fox jacket on. She does not pay for any drinks either.
Oh, yes, never. No, I do believe in the shouting it out, though. I have shout wipes in my office, so
it works,
good
right?
stuff there. Yes, Brian,
Absolutely.
you have me laughing with that one. All right, let's get you caught up on some of your headlines now. Sharing secrets with empty seats. Hundreds of congressmen called out for skipping a classified briefing on election meddling. Less than 50 of the 435 House members showing up to learn about threats from Russia, China, and Iran from intelligence chiefs.
The Democrats have made this such a big issue and have asked for this briefing for a long time. And we finally schedule it, and it's classified, and, 30 members show up.
Every non-retiring House member is up for re-election this year. A desperate search for answers after a plane crash lands, slides off the runway, and breaks in half. Just look at that. Miraculously, everyone on board survived. Incredible video showing the passengers climbing out of the wreckage in Honduras as Good Samaritans spray the smoldering plane with foam. The private jet had just arrived from Austin, Texas, with several Americans on board. This airport, surrounded by mountains, is known for its extremely difficult runway. An impatient cyclist taking matters into his own hands during a bomb scare. The suspicious bag in Milwaukee, no match for this guy, seemingly fed up with the road closure.
Oh my God!
Kidding me?
What in the world?
He empties the bag, revealing no explosives, the only boom coming as officers tackled him to the ground. Police do not think he had any other connection to the bag. Maybe something you shouldn't do there. A 30-year-old man is ordered to move out of his parents' house. A judge ruling Michael Rotundo must immediately leave the home in New York State after his parents asked him to leave 5 times, even offering him money to find a new place. Rotundo plans to appeal and reportedly went right back home after court. I don't know. This story just keeps getting better and better.
It is. And thank you very much, Jillian. And yesterday, the judge said to the parents, OK, you've got to work with your lawyer. You got to write up an eviction order for your son. The son had wanted to, keep in mind, the parents are suing to get him out. He wants to stay in the house 6 more months.
It's ridiculous. They left a note saying you have 2 weeks to get out.
Yeah. You have failed as a parent if you have to go to a judge to evict your 30-year-old son.
Well, you know what? I'm sure they were great parents, but they got played by him. He just didn't want, he does not want to go out.
I think they are great parents for doing this, right? They're forcing, they're kicking him.
If it comes to the point you got to get a judge involved? Good job, parents.
Because, look,
he won't
it was the last resort. He would not leave the house.
He refuses to leave the house.
That's bad parenting. You could have picked that up at 6, 8, 10, and 12. My son tends to mooch off us. So what? He doesn't have a job.
So what should they do?
What? You did move. As parents, you should move.
They should hire Sarah Jessica Parker. Remember that movie?
You live in the basement and you go rent an apartment and go to the Marriott.
Adam Klotz got the message. He left his parents' house in Indiana long ago.
Wasn't easy moving out, right, Adam?
I didn't know this was an option. I would have stayed too.
Adam, when did you move out? How old were you?
College.
Yeah.
I wanted to
And
go
you never
back. I
went
wanted
back.
to go back briefly, and they were not excited, so it didn't work out.
Yeah, a friend of mine came home and found out his bedroom was an expanded kitchen. That was the first. That was the first sign. I guess I'm not allowed to stay home. But the kitchen's nice. I love the nook.
All right, guys, forecast time. Let's stop talking about kids living at home forever, even though we all want to. I know it. Here's what we're talking about. Big area concern there off the coast of Belize. This is a big low pressure system, 50% chance of developing into a tropical storm here in the next 5 days. Probably not reaching hurricane status. We're still about a month away from hurricane season. You run up to the north. Where is this going to go? Most of the models saying into the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, some up the coast of Florida. Either way, this is going to be a big rain event. This is an early forecast model, so this isn't exactly how much rain areas are going to see, but it does give us an idea. Spots maybe as much as getting up to a foot of rain, but widespread, guys, we're talking anywhere from 6 to 8 inches. It is going to be a soggy Memorial Day weekend across portions of the south, the southeast, all across Florida, and then the Gulf Coast as well, guys.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Coming up.
All right. This college student showing support for President Trump on her graduation cap. So what happened when she got her diploma? She was booed on stage. You believe that? She'll join us live next.
And he protects, serves, and performs. That singing officer and his partner, who we will try to get to sing along, will join us live from Kansas City.
Never dreamed of something's changed. No, it's not the feeling of it.
Oh, jeez. All right, some quick headlines for you. Listen to that. This is Animal Edition. Those 2 wild lynx battling it out over what appears to be a screaming match. The intense exchange captured on the side of the road in Canada. And a deputy in Texas grabbing a bull by the horns, literally. The deputy seen holding one of the wandering bull's horns while escorting it back home. Steve, up to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Hazley. Cassie Dillon was an outspoken college Republican at Mount Holyoke in Massachusetts. She was also the president of the College Republicans. She founded a conservative blog and wore a graduation cap over the weekend, decorated with a Trump-Pence sticker. And what did she get in return from her peers? She says she was booed at her graduation while receiving her diploma. Listen carefully.
Cassandra Jo Dillon.
Whoa!
Elena Marie Dolan. Cassandra Jo Dillon.
Whoa!
Well, here now with more is that Mount Holyoke recent college grad and founder of LoneConservative.com, Cassandra Dillon, also known as Cassie Dillon. She joins us from D.C. Cassie, good morning to you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, it was hard for us to hear, but you say when you were walking across the stage to get your diploma, you were booed, right?
Yes, so as I was leading up to the stage, I was already having students around me making snide remarks while we were listening to the different commencement speakers, which was actually Nancy Pelosi. So each time they mentioned something about diversity or caring for others, they said, well, not all of us actually do. And they would look at me, they were tweeting at me during the graduation ceremony. And so I'm just ignoring it. And as I'm walking up, I realized that people are going to be staring at me because of my cap. And when I walked into the stage, I was booed, and I was shocked. I figured people would be staring at me, but I wasn't expecting a boo by any means.
I read in some of the materials, did you tell one of our producers that one of your professors was booing you?
No, one of my professors actually apologized to me afterwards.
Oh, good.
He heard it. He was on the stage, and afterwards he heard it, and he apologized. And he said he couldn't even believe what he heard.
Mm-hmm. Well, on the campus, you were regarded as like one of the lone Republicans. And is that why you decorated your graduation hat with the Trump-Pence sticker, a Carly Fiorina sticker, an Israel sticker, and things like that?
Yeah, so every single thing on that cap has a meaning behind it, especially the Carly Fiorina sticker, because that's where I got my start in politics in the 2016 campaign, and then the Trump sticker, because when I openly voted for Trump, I was physically threatened, I was harassed, I was followed as I was going home from class and shouted at. So everything in that sticker helped define my time at Mount Holyoke. And I was really shocked when my peers booed it, because obviously they know my political beliefs already, and they should... I think they should accept that I think differently, because now they're going out into the real world, and they need to realize that not everyone's going to agree with them.
That's right. The whole world isn't a safe space. But you, I understand, feel good about having gone to that particular school.
Yeah, so it's an all-women's college, and it's really close to my hometown, and I really think that I got the best education there because I learned how to debate. The entire time I was there, my views were challenged, and a lot of these students have never debated somebody with opposing views. So I really think that it helped prepare me for my career in journalism, and I really do think that it's going to be a very interesting time for me after college.
I think you're probably right. All right, Cassie Dillon just graduated. Congratulations, and good luck to you, Cassie.
Thank you.
All right. 12 minutes now before the top of the hour. President Trump wants the Department of Justice to investigate possible spying in his campaign, and the media, meltdown.
His allies on Capitol Hill are also trying to discredit the investigation.
The Justice Department is under a shelling from the White House. It's like London 1941 there.
What is wrong with trying to get to the truth? Molly Hemingway wants to know, and she's joining us in about 10 minutes. And he protects, serves, and performs. That singing officer and his partner will join us live from Kansas City. Good morning, guys.
Never dreamed of. Not only does this police officer protect and serve, he also knows how to perform.
You gave me something new that I never felt, never dreamed of. Something's changed. No, it's not the feeling I've had before.
All right, Kansas City Capitol Police Officer Lamont Jackson serenading his partner with the performance of Love Ballad. The video of the officers now going viral. 98% of their feedback has been positive. And Kansas City Capitol Police Officers Lamont Jackson and Michael Pagel join us now. Welcome, guys.
Good morning. How's it going?
We're great. I hope you are. How did this thing get out, and why did you do it?
We just want to try something different with our social media to try to reach out to the community and do something fun for people.
Hey, are you impressed, Michael? Are you impressed with Lamont's voice as impressed as we are?
Oh yes, I've experienced it and I've heard it for many years now, so I want to share it with the world.
Lamont, how did you get your training?
Started off doing karaoke, and I guess it just started snowballing after that. So that's how I.
Lamont, when we were watching it yesterday, we're so glad you're joining us. But yesterday we played it for our audience, and I thought it was going to be funny at first. And then we're watching, we're like, wow, he can really sing. You have a great voice. Now, Michael, do you sing too?
Yeah, but not. I call him the vocals of justice. I'm the vocals of crime because I can't quite sing as beautiful as he does. So
you just didn't know the words to that song. We were curious. We wanted you to sing along with him.
Right, I didn't know the words to that song.
So is this part of you trying to get people out there to understand that you guys are human beings too? Not only when you're walking around, but you do the same things that we do, only we don't do it as good as you do, Lamont?
Well, what we're trying to do is just bring the community and citizens closer to law enforcement. It seems like there's been we're divided further than we should be in America, and just bringing the community and the citizens closer together again.
Yeah, I understand that you have more videos that you're going to release. Can y'all sing something that you both know? Give us a taste of what's yet to come.
Can you let Michael do something, Lamont?
Well, what do you want to do? What song? I don't have a song right now that I can think of that I can do.
How about Feelings?
Do you know that song? No, we don't know that song.
Oh, you're bailing out. That's good.
Hey, Lamont, do you sing at church? Do you sing? You said karaoke.
Yeah. No, I didn't sing at church at all. I used to mimic people like Michael Jackson, Prince. I do a little country, so people would tell me I need to do something with my voice and travel and see what happens. And I sort of just, stay grounded and, just enjoy singing and release stress as well.
And Michael, just for the record, if Lamont is singing and you have a police call over the air, do you let him finish the verse, or do you put on the siren and go?
We will just put on the siren and go, and he'll have to do it for next time.
Just remember where he left off.
Y'all, you have to sing us one song.
They don't.
Come on. What about a Brick House? Everyone knows that song. Come on, something.
Brick House. Well, I don't know what to say right now.
How about the song you sang? Just reenact what you did, what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, we can do that one. I have never been so much
nice
in love before.
All right. Hey, Mike, I'm going to get you tambourines. You have something to do.
Oh, I got you.
Thank you, guys. We love you all. We